I'd like to show you the correct procedure for starting and operating this Coleman based table lamp I made. I put another Coleman standard camp lantern next to it so you can get an idea of its size. First thing, when you go to start this lantern, and you should do this every time you start this lantern cold or anytime you start it at all, is to relieve the pressure in the tank and afterwards open up this valve. What that's going to do is that's going to drain any raw Coleman fuel that was left in the system back down into the tank. This is very important starting it cold, because if you don't do that, you'll get too much raw fuel into the generator and into the mantle, and you'll have a large flare up. So each time you start it, relieve the pressure, open the valve all the way till it stops for about 10 or 15 seconds. That's going to allow any gas left in the lamps from the last time you ran it to drain back down into the tank. After about 10 or 15 seconds, you can close the valve snugly, close the fuel filler, and pump it up. I usually pump about 30 times. Be consistent, it works good for me. Next step in lighting this is going to be to open the fuel valve a quarter of a turn. Quarter of a turn only is all you need. What that's going to do is that's going to allow air to come out of the tank and flow up through the generator into the mantle. It's also going to draw up a little bit of fuel with it. This air and fuel mix is what's going to allow this lamp to start while it's cold. So when I first turn it on, you're going to hear a lot of air hissing. A moment later, you're going to hear some gas sputtering, and it will light. It takes about 10 seconds or so to the fuel to make it up there. There you have it. Once it burns bright, open this valve all the way, not a bunch, all the way until it stops. Don't have to crank it, but just until it comes to the stop. That's the running position. This valve does not adjust anything once the lamp is running. Leave it open all the way. The only two positions this valve should ever be in is one when you first start it at a quarter of a turn, and once it's running all the way. If you try to close it down, it won't adjust the flame or the brightness. It'll just bleed all the air out of the tank, and you don't want to do that. Once it starts, sometimes what I will do is I will put 5 more pumps into it. Just quick replace some of the air we used up while we started it cold. And that's it. It's running normally now. If you do want to adjust the brightness, in the back there's a small cleaner valve that puts a little pin inside the generator. This can be used to dim the flame down a bit. Once you bring it toward the top, you'll notice it starts to lower the flame. You can run it like that fine. It's a lot quieter, a lot of light, and bring it back down a little more if you want. You can leave it like that. I've left it like that on this type of a lamp for hours on the fuel in the tank. Another note about the fuel in the tank, you need a good amount of air in order for this thing to run properly without flooding. I'll usually fill a tank up about 2/3 of the way, leave the rest of the third air. It's a big tank, you don't need to overfill it. You'll just give yourself grief, cause flare-ups. And 2/3 of this tank will run for a lot of hours, especially on low like this. It'll probably run all night. So there you have it. Putting the lampshade back on, make sure you catch it inside all these 4 stops so it doesn't slip off. And your lamp is up and running. I put it next to a standard size Coleman camp lamp so you can see the difference in size. Anytime you want to brighten it up or change the brightness, find that little lever in the back, bring it back down a little bit. You can brighten it up, bring it down a little more, bring it down all the way if you want full brightness. There you have it. Shutting the lamp off. I'll just take the shade off so you can see. Be careful if you've left it running for a while, this might be hot. If it is hot and it's been running for a while, just reach underneath, take this fuel valve and close it all the way. Just snug it up. You don't have to crank on it. You just wear out the valve seat if you do. Once it comes to a stop, just make sure it's snug and let it go out. The last little bit of fuel that's up in this generator section above the valve is what you see burning off now. It doesn't mean the valve is leaking, it just means that the last little bit of fuel is burning off. And the flame is out. Again, when you go to restart this lamp, and every time you start this, make sure obviously that the flame is out before you do this. Open the filler, bleed out all the air that's in there. Once that's bled out, open up the fuel valve all the way. Don't open up the fuel valve if there's still any pressure in there. Make sure this is empty of pressure before you open up the fuel valve or you'll just flood. Now it's fuel, the cap is off or open, pressure's down. You can open the fuel valve all the way, let it drain for 15 seconds. Close this up, close the valve, pump it up, and you're off and running again. That's about it. Thanks for watching. Any questions, post them in the comment section.